My mother gave money and phones to all her grandchildren, except my daughter. She, confused, asked her, "Grandma, why don't I have a gift?" My mother replied with contempt, "You and your dad aren't one of US. If there's no $400,000, there's no family." But she never imagined that my daughter's response would leave everyone speechless. I never thought that Christmas, a time for togetherness and sharing, would become a turning point in my life. My name is Antonio. I'm 38 years old. And since my wife Juliana died 5 years ago, everything I do is for my 9-year-old daughter, Sophia, and for the restaurant Juliana and I opened together, Juliana's Corner. That place is more than a business. It's my wife's dream, her legacy. Every recipe, every table carries her mark. But this story isn't just about my struggle to keep her memory alive. It's about how my family, whom I blindly trusted, turned their backs on me, and how Sophia, with her pure heart, changed everything. It all started a few months ago when I began to notice something wasn't right. After Juliana's death, I started sending money every month to my parents, Elena and Roberto, to care for Sophia while I worked at the restaurant. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough for Sophia to have clothes, school supplies, and her beloved painting classes. My parents always told me everything was fine, that Sophia was well cared for. I believed them. They always said family helps family. And with that in mind, I entrusted them with my daughter and the money. But lately, things didn't add up. Sophia came home with old clothes. Her shoes were worn out, and when I asked about her painting classes, she said Grandma told her there was no money. It seemed strange because I was sending a decent amount every month. I thought maybe my parents were having financial troubles they didn't want to share. I called my mother to ask, but she always dodged the topic. "Don't worry, Antonio," she'd say dryly. "Sophia is fine with us." I didn't think much of it at first. The restaurant kept me busy. Juliana's Corner wasn't just a business. It was my way of keeping Juliana close. Every day, walking into the kitchen and seeing her photo on the wall, I felt she was with me. The place wasn't a millionaire success, but it kept us afloat. Customers loved Juliana's recipes, the stories I told about her, and the cozy atmosphere we created together. Keeping it running was tough, but I did it for her. One day, while reviewing the accounts, the phone rang. It was my younger brother, Marcos, the family favorite who could mess up without consequences. While I worked hard with Juliana, Marcos jumped from one business to another, always with get-rich-quick schemes. His latest project was a food delivery app that he claimed would change the game, but by his voice, I knew he was in trouble. "Antonio, I need to talk to you," he said nervously. "My company's in trouble. I need $400,000 to save it." I stayed silent. $400,000 was insane. The restaurant barely covered expenses and Sophia's needs. I didn't have that money, and Marcos knew it. "Marcos, I don't have that kind of money," I replied. "I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to give it to me," he cut in. "Talk to Mom and Dad. They have a plan." That call left me uneasy. My parents always protected Marcos, but I never thought they'd go this far. I decided to visit their house that weekend to clear things up. Sophia was excited to see her grandparents and her cousins, Marcos' kids, so I took her along. When we arrived, the house seemed normal. The kids were playing, my mother was cooking, my father was watching TV. But there was a tension I couldn't ignore. "Antonio!" "Good you came," my mother said, wiping her hands. "We need to talk." We sat in the dining room, and that's when it all began. My mother was blunt. "Marcos needs help," she said. "His company is the future for his kids. You, as the older brother, should support him." "Support him how?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Sell the restaurant," my father said, as if it were the most logical thing. "That place only brings you debt. If you sell it, you can give the money to Marcos." I was stunned. Sell the restaurant? Juliana's dream, the place that kept me connected to her? I couldn't believe it. "I'm not selling," I said, holding back my anger. "It's Juliana's legacy." My mother looked at me with contempt. "Always so selfish, Antonio. It's always about your paying your wife. What about your brother, your nephews? They're your family." "Sophia's my family," I replied, feeling the fury rise. I've sent money every month for you to take care of her. Where's that money? Because Sophia doesn't have new clothes or go to her classes. My mother glanced at my father, and I knew something was wrong. The money, we used it to help Marcos, she admitted. His company needed support, and we thought you'd understand. Family helps family. I felt as if I'd been stabbed. All the money I sent for Sophia went to Marcos's failed ventures. I stood up, trembling. That money was for my daughter, I said, my voice shaking. I trusted you. We did it for everyone's good, my father said without remorse. Marcos is the future. You and Sophia have the restaurant. You'll manage. I couldn't stay there. I took Sophia and left without another word. On the way home, Sophia looked at me and asked, "Why was Grandma mad?" "I don't know, little one. I lied to avoid worrying her." But inside, the betrayal burned. My family had used my daughter's money, and now wanted me to sacrifice Juliana's legacy. I wouldn't allow it. The following days were tough. I tried to stay calm for Sophia, but every time I entered the restaurant, I felt a knot in my chest. How could I protect Juliana's dream and give Sophia what she needed? The answer came from Sophia herself. One night while we ate, she looked at me and said, "Dad, Mom used to say family is love, not things. Why does Grandma say we're not part of them?" Her words hit me hard. Juliana always believed in love, in kindness, that family was more than blood. My little girl reminded me what mattered. I knew I couldn't let my family manipulate me anymore. I had to protect Sophia and Juliana's legacy. I contacted Javier, Juliana's lawyer, who helped us with the restaurant. I told him everything, the diverted money, the pressure to sell. Javier listened and said, "Antonio, what your parents did is illegal. That money was for Sophia. We can sue them." Suing my family felt extreme, but I couldn't let them get away with it. It wasn't just the money. It was a betrayal, the contempt toward Sophia, toward Juliana, toward everything we built. I agreed, and Javier began preparing the case. Christmas was approaching, and with it, a family gathered. My parents insisted on having to talk as a family. I knew they wanted to pressure me more, but they didn't know Sophia, and I were ready to face them. My little girl, with her innocence, would say something that would leave them speechless. The days before the gathering were tense. Every time I entered the restaurant, I felt the weight of everything. The betrayal, the money diverted from Sophia, the pressure to sell Juliana's legacy. But Sophia's words echoed in my head. Mom said family is love, not things. That phrase gave me strength. Juliana always had a way of seeing the world that made everything clearer. And now, through our daughter, she was reminding me what truly mattered. I decided I wouldn't go to the gathering empty-handed. I called Javier to ensure everything was in order. He explained we had a solid case. The money I sent for Sophia was for her care, and my parents used it without my permission. There were bank records, messages where my mother confirmed they'd use it for Sophia, and proof they hadn't spent a cent on her. Javier was confident we could recover the money and possibly seek compensation for emotional damage. But beyond the money, I wanted my family to understand they couldn't manipulate me anymore. Christmas Eve arrived, and with Sophia holding my hand, I went to my parents' house. The scene was typical. A decorated tree, lights everywhere, and the smell of food filling the air. My nephews, Marcos' kids, ran around excitedly with their new toys. My mother was in the kitchen giving orders, while my father and Marcos chatted in the living room. Everything seemed normal, but I knew it was a facade. This time, I wouldn't let them fool me. "Antonio, good you came," my mother said with a forced smile. "Sit, let's eat." Sophia, in her red Christmas dress, looked around with curiosity. I noticed my nephews had new cell phones and designer clothes, while Sophia wore the same dress from last Christmas. It made me angry, but I held back. I didn't want to ruin the night for my daughter. Dinner began, and as expected, my mother didn't take long to bring up the topic. "Antonio, we've been thinking," she said while serving food. "Marcos needs that money. If you sell the restaurant, you could help him and start over. It's best for everyone." "I'm not selling the restaurant," I replied firmly. "It's Juliana's legacy. It's not negotiable." My father snorted. Always so stubborn. Don't you see Marcos is trying something big? Your restaurant is going nowhere. It's just dead weight. Before I could respond, Sophia looked up from her plate and asked, Grandma, why do my cousins have gifts and I don't? Silence fell over the table. Everyone looked uncomfortable. My mother, with a harsh expression, said, Sophia, don't worry about that. Gifts are for those who are part of the family. Then am I not part of the family? Sophia asked, her eyes shining with confusion. My mother, without a hint of empathy, replied, You and your father are not one of us. If there's no $400,000, there's no family. The air grew heavy. My nephews stopped playing with their phones. Marcos looked down, and my father pretended to be busy with his food. I was about to explode, but before I could say anything, Sophia spoke again, her voice clear and firm, not sounding like that of a 9-year-old. Mom said family isn't bought with money, she said, looking straight into my mother's eyes. She said family is when you care for and love each other, not when you ask for things in return. If you think money is more important, then you're not my grandma. The silence was deafening. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. My father shifted in his chair, and Marcos looked like he wanted to disappear. Sophia's eyes shimmered with tears, but her voice didn't waver. In that moment, I felt immense pride for my daughter. With one sentence, she had exposed my family's hypocrisy better than I ever could have. I stood up, taking Sophia's hand. She's right, I said, looking at my parents. Juliana taught us what family is, and you're not part of it. You used the money I sent for Sophia for your own purposes and gave it to Marcos without my permission. That's not family, that's theft. Antonio, don't be dramatic, my mother said, regaining her voice. Everything we did was for everyone's good. Marcos needs that money. And Sophia doesn't? I replied, that money was for her. And now I find out not only did you use it, but you wanted to sell the restaurant to keep bailing out Marcos. I won't do it, and this isn't over. Marcos finally spoke, his tone pleading. Brother, please, my company is about to collapse. If you don't help me, I'll lose everything. You lost everything when you chose to live off empty promises. I said, and Mom and Dad lost it when they chose to betray Sophia. This isn't over. I took Sophia and left the house. In the car, she hugged me tightly. Did I do okay, Dad? She asked in a small voice. You did perfectly, little one, I replied, kissing her forehead. Mom will be proud. That night, while Sophia slept, I called Javier. I told him about the dinner, Sophia's response, and my mother's attitude. Javier was furious, but said it strengthened our case. Your mother's statement is an admission of guilt, he said. If we can prove they used Sophia's money without your consent, we'll win. And we can go for more. Emotional damages, abuse of trust. This isn't just illegal, it's personal. The following days were a whirlwind. Javier and I gathered evidence, bank statements, messages, even recordings of conversations where my mother admitted to using the money from Marcos. Each document was like a nail in the coffin of my relationship with my family, but I felt no guilt, only relief. For the first time, I saw clearly what Juliana always told me. Family isn't blood, it's loyalty. Meanwhile, the restaurant remained my refuge. Customers kept coming, and every time someone ordered Juliana's favorite dish, I felt she was there, giving me strength. But I knew the fight wasn't over. My parents wouldn't give up easily, and Marcos was still desperate to save his company. I knew they'd try something else, maybe something worse. A week later, I received a letter from my mother. It wasn't the apology I hoped for, it was a threat. She said if I didn't give them the money, they'd make my life impossible, tell everyone I was a bad son, a selfish person who left his brother to ruin, and even fight for Sophia's custody, claiming I wasn't a good father. Reading the letter, I felt a mix of rage and sadness. How could my own mother go this far? I called Javier immediately. This is intimidation, he said. It's another piece of evidence against them. Not only will we recover the money, Antonio will make sure they never bother you again. While preparing the lawsuit, Sophia remained my rock. One night, as she painted in her notebook, she said, Dad, Mom said sometimes you have to fight for what's right. Are we doing the right thing? Yes, little one. I replied, we're fighting for you, for Mom, for everything she believed in. The legal battle was just beginning, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. My parents were stubborn, and Marcos wouldn't give up, but for the first time, I felt in control. Sophia had reminded me what true family was, and with Javier's support, I would protect Juliana's legacy at all costs. The next meeting with my family wouldn't be at a Christmas table, but in a courtroom, and this time, there would be no silence. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Javier and I worked tirelessly, gathering every possible piece of evidence. Bank statements showing the transfers I made for Sophia, text messages where my mother promised to use the money for her care, and even a recording from the Christmas dinner where she admitted diverting it to Marcos. Each document was a reminder of the betrayal, but also a spark of hope. If everything went well, we not only recover the money, but send a clear message. No one could trample on Juliana's legacy or my daughter's well-being. Meanwhile, the restaurant remained my refuge. Every day, opening the door to Juliana's corner, I felt her presence. Customers kept coming, ordering her favorite dishes, like the stew she perfected after months of testing. Some noticed my tension and asked if everything was okay. I smiled and changed the subject, but the truth was I lived with a knot in my chest. My mother's threat, that cruel letter hinting at fighting for Sophia's custody, haunted me. I knew they had no legal ground, but the mere mention made my blood boil. Sophia, as always, was my strength. She kept going to school, painting in her notebook, and every so often surprised me with phrases that seemed straight from Juliana's lips. One afternoon, while I cleaned tables at the restaurant, she approached with a drawing. It was her, me, and Juliana holding hands in front of the restaurant, with a bright sun above. "This is family, Dad," she said. "We don't need anyone else." I kept that drawing on my desk, and whenever I doubted, I looked at it to remind myself why I was fighting. The trial day came faster than expected. It was a cold morning, and Sophia insisted on coming with me to the courtroom. "I want to be there, Dad," she said. "For Mom." I couldn't say no. We walked in together, and seeing my parents and Marcos on the other side of the room, I felt a mix of anger and pity. My mother had that hard look she used to intimidate, but this time it didn't work. Marcos looked exhausted, as if he knew his latest big idea was about to collapse. My father avoided my gaze. Javier presented our case clearly, explaining how I sent money every month for Sophia's care, how my parents diverted it to Marcos without my consent, and how they tried to manipulate me into selling the restaurant. He showed the documents, played the Christmas dinner recording, and even called a witness, a neighbor who saw Sophia in old clothes while my nephews flaunted new phones. Every word was a direct blow to the family facade my parents had built. When it was their turn, their lawyer tried to paint a picture of family sacrifice, claiming they used the money to help the whole family, that Marcos was an investment for the future. But the judge didn't seem convinced. Then my mother took the stand. "Antonio has always been selfish," she said, her voice trembling but venomous. "He never wanted to help his brother. Everything we did was for the greater good." Javier looked at me, and I knew it was my moment. I stood up and spoke unplanned. "Your Honor," I said, "that money was for my daughter, for her clothes, her classes, her happiness. I trusted my parents because I believed in family. But they took that money and gave it to my brother while my daughter went without. Then they asked me to sell the restaurant, my late wife's dream, to keep funding Marcos' failures. And when my daughter asked why she didn't have gifts, my mother told her she wasn't part of the family. That's not family, that's betrayal." The room fell silent. I saw the judge take notes, then look at Sophia, who sat beside me with her drawing notebook in hand. "Do you want to say something, little one?" the judge asked with unexpected gentleness. Sophia stood up, nervous but determined. "My mom said family is love," she said. "That it's not about money but about caring for each other. Grandma didn't care for me. She used Dad's money for my cousins but left me with nothing. And she said we weren't family because we didn't give her money. But I think she's not my family because she doesn't know how to love." A murmur ran through the room. My mother looked down, and Marcos covered his face with his hands. The judge nodded, and I knew Sophia's words had struck deep. It wasn't just a child speaking. It was pure, unfiltered truth that Juliana had taught her. The trial lasted a few more hours, but the verdict came quickly. The judge ruled in our favor. My parents had to repay every cent they took, plus compensation for emotional damages. They were also prohibited from contacting Sophia without my consent, a measure Javier insisted on, including due to the custody threat. Marcos faced no direct charges, but his company collapsed soon after. Without the money my parents gave him, he couldn't sustain it. As we left the courtroom, Sophia hugged me. "We did it, Dad," she said, smiling. "Mom would be happy." I hugged her tightly, feeling I could finally breathe after months. We had won. But more importantly, we had protected what truly mattered, Juliana's legacy and Sophia's happiness. Back at the restaurant, things started to improve. With the recovered money, I paid off debts, upgraded kitchen equipment, and even hired an extra person to help. Customers noticed a change, and the business began to grow. Sophia returned to her painting classes, and her drawings filled the restaurant walls, adding an even warmer touch. Every day, I felt Juliana was with us, smiling from somewhere. My parents tried contacting me weeks later, saying they wanted to fix things, but I didn't respond. There was nothing to fix. They chose money over Sophia, and that was unforgivable. Marcos disappeared. I heard he was trying another business, but I no longer cared. My family was Sophia and the restaurant, and that was enough. One night, as I closed the restaurant, Sophia approached with a new drawing. It was a restaurant with a sign that read, "Juliana's Corner, where love lives." "This is for Mom," she said. I hung the drawing next to Juliana's photo, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. The fight was over, and though the road was tough, it was worth it. Sophia and I were stronger, and Juliana's legacy lived on, not just in the restaurant, but in my daughter's heart. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. As long as I had Sophia in the restaurant, nothing could stop us. True family isn't measured in dollars, but in love, and that was something Juliana taught us forever.